To turn then to the groups of three that I mentioned, obviously there's the favourite group, which includes the Bangor Bell, and I owe these pictures to Gary McCormack, who took them here in 2016 when the wonderful initiative got off the ground to borrow the two other bells from Dublin, which is the Lough Lane, County Westmeath bell, which is on your left, and the bell from Cashel in County Tipperary, which is in the middle. And to put the three together on exhibition here in the North Down Museum, and it was, I believe, a great success, and certainly was an education to all of us to see the three together, which I think had never been done before. Now the beauty of these three bells is that I'm sure they're all made by the same hand, and because they're so far apart in terms of where they turned up, we can't help thinking, was this a travelling craftsman, a cleric? I've no doubt, but a travelling cleric who was the person who could make these master products to order in particular churches. The three are distinguished by their size, as you can see, the shape, the proportions, and by their decoration, because the three of them have got crosses finely engraved, which of course you won't be able to see from this distance, but you know, everybody knows that the cross is engraved on the Bangor Bell. The other two have them too. Also very neatly engraved panels of key pattern that are running around the base of the face and the sides. The one difference that you might notice between these three bells is the handle of the middle one from Cashel in County Tipperary. That was an extraordinary intervention made by John Hunt sometime maybe around 1950, after he bought the bell from the Dunravens in Adare Manor. He had the stubs of the primary handle removed, which are shown in an early illustration, and he had that handle added. And it is extraordinary to me, not only that he did it, but secondly that he did it so badly, because the handle is, as you can see, the handle is too high. But just in case anyone's in any doubt about the finding of these things, they've not been continuously handed down. So many bells have, but not these three. So your own was found first around about 1790 is what we read, found in the ruins, is all we're told, in the ruins of Bangor Abbey. Maybe in grave digging, or maybe somebody poking about, hoping to find something. And it was firstly in the hands of the Stevensons, father and son. The elder Stevenson was a minister in Grey Abbey, and then his son, a physician in Belfast. And then it came down through that family down to the McCants family in Knocknagunny House, which is, as you now know, is used by the PSNI just above Tesco, halfway into Belfast. I've heard that place name pronounced Knocknagunny as a rule, but a friend of mine from East Belfast says Knocknagunny, so that's what I should be sticking to. And that's where the bell was until 1955, when the bell was bought by Bangor Borough Council in 55 from the estate of the last of the McCanses of Knocknagunny House. And the money paid, if anyone's interested, was £360. So £360 paid for the original Bangor bell. And I have no idea how much that would be worth today, so I had to look it up. There's a handy calculator, of course, online. I can tell you it's worth £11,647 and 59p. So that's what was paid back in 55. Now the Cashel bell was found next. It was found in 1849. That's the middle bell, and as I say, the first illustration shows with just the remnant of the handle. We don't know in what circumstances the Cashel bell was found, but we know it was found in 1849 because the Dunravens, in a publication, they tell us that. But they don't say in what circumstances. But we have independent evidence that there were a lot of discoveries made when a well, a very deep well beside the cathedral wall on the Rock of Cashel, was being cleaned out in 1849. A lot of interesting things were pulled out of the well, including a chalice, it seems. So clearly it wasn't just a dumping place, it was a place for secreting precious objects. So my best theory is that the Dunravens got the bell from that 1849 discovery, but when they published it a few years later, 1860, they were a bit coy about that and decided not to say where precisely it came from or how precisely they got it, just in case their title to the bell might be questioned. But certainly 1849, it seems too coincidental that these major discoveries should be coming at different places on the Rock of Cashel. And then I should move on just to show you the other images. These sort of illustrate just how similar these three bells are. And then there's an internal view, and the middle one shows you the machined nuts that are holding on the thread ends of John Hunt's replacement handle. And it's a replacement clapper as well that he fitted. These are interventions that no curator would contemplate today. But what this also shows, interestingly, the image on the right of the Bangor bell, you can see that the Bangor bell on the right is slightly skewed. And I think that what happened is that I didn't go into the making of these things, but they're made with a beeswax model. And the beeswax model then has to be invested completely inside and out in a mixture of in a clay, animal dung, straw mixture until it's totally coated. And when it's totally invested in that material, it maybe suffered some slight distortion that the bell founder couldn't see. And so once the bell was then cast, the wax being melted out and the metal poured in, the resulting metal bell had reproduced the slight skewness that had been imparted somehow to the wax original. But I'm sure the wax original was made true, but just something went wrong. It's a very minor difference. And then, because these are line drawings, you probably won't really be able to see them, but these are the ringed crosses that are incised on the faces of the Lough Lane and Bangor and Cashel bells. And it's a point I've just made here before, but just to mention again that the Bangor bell appears to have unringed crosses inscribed on the two faces. When you look in raking very closely in raking light at the faces of the Bangor bell, you can see there are indeed beginnings of rings marked out to make the crosses on the bell, ringed crosses. And there's a central compass point in each of the crosses on the Bangor bell that the maker was using to describe the circle, but he never finished them. And my best suggestion in relation to that is that was a local intervention. Someone said to him, "We don't want our crosses ringed." Thank you very much. And he didn't, because unringed crosses are common down at Nendrum, for example, so it might have been just a local preference. But it seems like very local, because obviously ringed crosses are to be found elsewhere within the county. And then the third bell to be found, so we have 1790 for Bangor, then we have 1849 for Cashel, so the last one then was 1881, which is the Lough Lane bell, and it turned up on an island in Lough Lane in County Westmeath, and somebody fishing found the bell where it must have been hidden on the island. All three bells presumably hidden at some point for safekeeping, but we don't know when. And this one was found by a local man, and he brought it to Dublin, sold it to the Royal Irish Academy in the 1880s, I think it was, and he sold it for £10. And that was in 1882, or 1881, the discovery was made. And £10 back then was worth £1,483 today. So that's an even smaller figure. But these bells were going at bargain prices in the past. And because we're not forgetting what county we're in, and although I've said this is a group of three, and it is primarily a group of three, there is one other that we might possibly be able to bring into the earth, as it were, of the same man who made these things. It's the bell from Kilbrony down in St Mary's in Australia. Because it's not as big, and this is a different image, but I've tried to sort of insert it here at the true scale. So it's within maybe half a centimetre of the true scale as far as I can get it. So it's smaller, it's the smallest of them, and it's not quite a sharp angle, it's not decorated, but it is pretty similar. So if there's a fourth bell we can attribute to the same person, or at least to the same generation, then it's the Kilbrony bell. And incidentally, the handle is so different in Kilbrony because it's a replacement. It was added in the 12th century, and it's the most interesting thing in its own right. And at the moment in Kilbrony, the bell is in the church, hung by the handle, and it shouldn't be, of course. We never lift these bells by their handles. But another group of three, and this arose, it just shows the total accident and the serendipitousness of life, that we sent a copy of the Bell's book in 2020 or early in 21 over just not expecting anything in particular, but we sent one copy for review to the Ringing World, which is the main English campanological magazine. I'm sure Tom, you will know it. But sent it over to Peterborough to a man called Will Bosworth in Peterborough, and he then just picked one of his own colleagues, a man called George Dawson, Willoughby on the Wolds in Leicestershire, and he sent it to George. And when George saw the book, he said, "That reminds me of something that he'd seen in 2000 or thereabouts." So he then sent a photograph to me, a print photograph with a letter, the old-fashioned way. And I said to myself, "This looks like the most interesting bell you're showing me here, George. Can you get me more images?" So he did. And this is the bell he sent me a picture of, hanging outside what's actually a farming family's house, Farnsfield, close to Farnsfield in Nottinghamshire. And this is Mrs. Cullen with basically her doorbell. They found it on their own land, as I say, sometime in the late 1990s. So I managed to get, after COVID, managed to get over there and see this bell for myself, and it's a beautiful thing. And this gives you maybe an impression of what it's like. And the key thing to note, we have a bell with very rounded angles, with uprights, a very upright handle, with a very close to horizontal grip, and critically as well, just pointed out, a hole in the side, and there's a hole corresponding exactly aligned with that in the opposite side. And so where we fit this bell from Nottinghamshire into the picture is with these other two. So what we've got, amazingly, out of a field in Nottingham, the first time the field was deep ploughed, they tell me, this just came up. And this one isolated find, nothing else from the same field. But it's a sibling of two others. The Terry Goodwin bell from County Armagh and the Kildare bell from Inishowen in County Donegal. And we know the date of these three, that they've got to be early 10th century, because the date of, because the man commemorated on the middle bell, his death is recorded in the annals of Ulster. It's a character called Comascach, the son of Ailill. And Comascach is named here, and the inscription is asking for a prayer for him. This is a classic kind of inscription that you find on a gravestone. So this is a commemorative inscription on the bell that I presume was made at that time. I think it's reasonable that it was made as a commemorative thing for this Comascach in 909. And there can be no doubt that the other two bells are by the same maker, because we have we're departing really from the quadrangular shape, and we're coming into a rounded shape. And also, as you can see, I think even at that distance you'll be able to see, we have here in the two other bells from Ireland, we have aligned holes in the faces. And that's a technical trick of the maker to do with the way he made these bells. But in the case of the bell from Nottingham, the holes are for some reason in the side, but it's the same trick of the maker. It's one of his signature details. So there's no doubt in my mind that these three bells were made somewhere around Armagh in the early 10th century. And of course, I neglect to say that the Bangor bell and its siblings are essentially older than that. I should have made that clear. They belong to the early 9th, I think. So here we have, again, a set of three, and it's because the inscribed bell is an Armagh product. I think we can localise all three of these really to an Armagh workshop. And how the Nottingham bell got to the Midlands of England is a mystery. There's a major church nearby, the famous Southwell, famous for its horse racing, but famous as well for its Minster Church, a great ecclesiastical centre at the very southern end of the Diocese of York. And maybe the bell was carried there by an Irish person with some connection or wanting to bring a gift to the church, who knows. When it was buried, I presume it was buried rather than lost. When that happened, we don't know. Maybe just Reformation time, perhaps, when things got scattered out of Southwell. And there, again, is a view of the interior of all three of these bells. And there's another signature detail that I won't dwell on, but just to do, there's a telltale trail within each of the three of the wax, the way the wax, it's not a continuous wax surface, that our maker has left an unplanished wax junction within all three bells. So I have no doubt about the work of one person. Moving quickly on, another set of three, and these are associated with one definite find from County Monaghan, from Inniskeen in County Monaghan, and then there's another localised only to the County Monaghan, and then there's ones from somewhere in the west. And I've no doubt that all these 3 bells were made by the same person. We can't say precisely when they were made, maybe sometime in the 9th or 10th century, but they don't have any telltale details to say, tell us when they were made. But the key thing about the 3, and it's extraordinary in that they've all obviously been in use and they've all been preserved and handed down, is that all 3 of them are failures, because all 3 have primary flaws in the casting, because they're very thin walled and the metal didn't travel fully through the mould in any of them, and so they were left with unclosed, with junk, with holes and surfaces that didn't quite coalesce, and yet all 3 bells were put to use. And I can only suggest that the making of the bell involved some kind of invocation. As you know, in the Benedictine tradition, for example, you don't embark in any work without, asking God's blessing on it first, and I think that was probably done. And so, having invoked divine help, or the help of the saint, for example, having invoked that help, and you get your result, then you can't change it. I suspect that might have been the motivation, because obviously, to melt the bronze down and cast it again, you might think was the obvious thing to do, but it wasn't done. Now, one of these bells from Inniskeen introduces us to the patron of that place, who is a character called Daig, generally spelled D-A-I-G in the older language, and I just have this on because this is the national school in the main street in Inniskeen. This is Paddy Kavanagh territory in Inniskeen. But what's on the screen there is the national school, so you have the Scandinavian Ja, which is Ja being the Daig in the genitive case. And this character, founder, bishop, abbot too, he is reputed to have been this great metal worker in early Ireland. He's a true historical figure, there's no question about that. And what he produced is greatly exaggerated by the tradition. It's embroidered, but at the same time he clearly was a metalworking saint. And what's interesting about him in the Bangor context is that he was a student here. And he was a kind of pet metalworker to various saints later in his career. But he was a student here in Bangor, and there's a Latin life of this character, Daig, and it tells us about him being here in Bangor, and it says that while he was in Bangor, he made 3 bells for Colco Bangor. It's written in Latin, so the word is Cymbalum, so he made 3 Cymbala for Colco. But then the writer goes to tell us, and there's something miraculous about this, it circumstantially tells us which are today kept in Mogno. And it's M-O-G-N-O, which is how we spell, so it's in the Latin Mogno. And that place is identifiable because it's a place now, it's the townland of Dunmanog, and it's Dunmahano in Irish. And this is the parish of Ballochmoon in South County Kildare. So the moon part in Ballochmoon is the Mogna that the life of the saint is talking about. So the 3 bells that Daig made while he was a student here in Bangor, the writer tells us, are preserved in this place, Dunmanog. This is what it boils down to. And Dunmanog is a most interesting spot. I have an aerial view there. It's in that very rich farmed landscape of the Barrow Valley in South Kildare, bordering on North Carlow. And it's interesting to be able to mention that here because Dunmanog has been adopted under the Adopt a Monument scheme that the Heritage Council in the South has organised, and the Castledermot Historical Society have adopted Dunmanog as a special study. And I've just been in touch with in the last few days with Sharon Green, who was editing Archaeology Ireland until lately. She's an archaeologist who lives locally. And so, if we could have organised a helicopter, we could join them today because as we speak, they are doing fieldwork at Dunmanog and gathering whatever information they can while the winter, when the growth is low at this time of year. But meanwhile, she tells me, the Discovery Programme, that's the research body, have done geophysics in a giant field and found the enclosure, the line of the monastic enclosure, and also evidence for a village. So there's a whole lot going on at Dunmanog. And as I say, the 3 bells from Bangor were remembered as having been preserved there. So obviously some importance attached to them. And they were obviously famed because they were supposed to be the output of this Dag character. And there's an aerial, much more distant area view, but I've attempted on the left. If you can see a blue arrow on the left, the blue arrow on the left is pointing to Dunmanode, and the white line here is the course of the River Barrow, and over here is Castledermot and Ballach. This is in the parish of Ballachmoon. Castledermot is another parish. These are neighbouring parishes, and Castledermot was founded by the grandson of one of the kings of Ulster, famous Diarmuid, who died in 825, one of the Céile Day movement, and it's one of my professors at school at college described Castledermot very nicely as a daughter house of Bangor. Such was the intimate relationship between Castledermot and Bangor. And now I think we can add into that nexus, if you like, the fact that 3 bells made here were preserved just a few miles west here at Dunmanode. These phenomena, I think, must all be connected. Lot to be teased out there. And here is part of the map available of the Columban Way. And what we're seeing here, we've got Maganey marked here on my aerial image, and Maganey crops up again somewhere I can't see it there, Maganey. And so our site of Dunmanode is just here, where the Columban Way misses it completely. Because nobody asked me, basically, I suppose, I can only say. But what I would hope to be possible is that maybe Dunmanode, because it's only a short hop off the Columban Way, it might ultimately be added as a point of great interest along this route.